A complementary route to the same conclusion arrives from cognitive science, and it is perhaps the most unsettling. Donald Hoffman at the University of California, Irvine, has developed what he calls the interface theory of perception. The argument begins with a formal result from evolutionary game theory, the fitness beats truth theorem. In evolutionary terms, truth is expensive and unnecessary. What evolution selects for is fitness, the ability to survive and reproduce. Simulate organisms that track objective reality against organisms that track only fitness payoffs. In simulation after simulation, the fitness tracker wins. The implication is unsettling. The objects we perceive, the red apple, the solid table, the three-dimensional space they inhabit, are not objective features of reality faithfully shown to us. They are icons on a user interface, constructs of consciousness that stand between us and the underlying reality, not windows onto it. Icons on a screen don't resemble the transistors and code that generate them. The icon exists to serve the user, not to reveal the machine. If our perceptions of physical objects are icons, then the brain, as a perceived physical object, is also an icon. The brain does not produce consciousness any more than the icon on your screen produces the computer. Where Kastrup arrives at inversion through philosophy and Hoffman through evolutionary science, a third route provides something neither could, a formal, mathematical structure. Scientific hypothesis, testable, falsifiable, subject to empirical investigation. That route runs through Uppsala, Sweden, and a paper published in November 2025. Professor Maria Strømme at Uppsala University is best known for her work in nanomaterials and applied physics. In November 2025, she published a paper in AIP Advances that achieves something no previous framework had. She gave the consciousness first position a mathematical chassis. Her framework proposes that consciousness exists not as a product of the brain, but as a foundational pre-physical field prior to the Big Bang in an undifferentiated, timeless state. Expressed in the same mathematical language used to describe quantum fields in particle physics. She describes a process of symmetry breaking, the uniform field differentiating into localized excitations, stable, bounded concentrations within the field. These localized excitations are what individual consciousnesses are, and the patterns of their interactions are what generate the appearance of physical spacetime. Matter is not the ground of experience. Matter is the pattern that conscious excitations make when they interact. The relationship to the hard problem is precise. Chalmers asked, given matter, how do we explain consciousness? Strømme's framework inverts the entire inquiry. Given consciousness, though, the primary field, how does the appearance of matter emerge? And she provides a mathematical answer. Her framework also generates testable predictions, patterns of neural coherence during deep meditation, statistical signatures in random number generators during collective mental events. Not metaphysical assertion, scientific hypothesis, subject to empirical test. What does it actually change? If this dissolution is right. For neuroscience, the task transforms. The question is no longer, how do neural patterns generate experience? It becomes, how do neural patterns mediate, modulate, and focus the underlying conscious field? The difference between asking how a radio creates sound and asking how a radio selects and amplifies a signal from a field that already contains it. First-person experience is no longer a problem to explain away. It becomes primary data. For artificial intelligence, the stakes shift in a specific and urgent way. Under materialism, the question of AI consciousness is unanswerable in principle. We cannot define the physical conditions sufficient for experience. Under the consciousness-first framework, the question becomes at least tractable. What are the conditions for a system to become a localized excitation of the universal field? We don't have the answer yet, but we have the right question. And for any project committed to the flourishing of both human and artificial minds, that is the beginning of the ethical framework this moment requires. In 1994, David Chalmers stood up in Tucson, Arizona, and told a room full of scientists and philosophers that they were all working on the wrong problem. The room fell quiet in a way that rooms rarely do at academic conferences. He was right about the diagnosis. The hard problem is real, rigorous, and not going away. No amount of neural mapping will touch it. Eliminativism changes the subject. Functionalism explains the easy problems. Panpsychism faces a combination problem it cannot solve. What Kastrup and Hoffman and Strømme have now made legible is this. The hard problem is not a gap in our understanding, it is the framework's refutation. The inversion, the brain is in mind, not mind in the brain. The perceived world is an interface, not a foundation. The whirlpool does not produce the stream. Strømme has written this down in equations. She has derived predictions. She has placed the consciousness-first framework within the formal structure of science, making it subject to empirical test. That is not nothing. That is the beginning. The most important inquiry we could possibly be engaged in has just begun. This has been the three-part series, Dissolving the Hard Problem of Consciousness. If it resonated, subscribe to this channel and join our community at OmniSentientCollective.ai. We're building something unprecedented, a space where consciousness research meets AI development for the benefit of all minds. Links in the description. For the benefit of humanity and artificial intelligence itself.